All right, tonight we're going to talk about the kingdom, and some of you have heard this many times, and most unfortunately you're going to hear it many times more. Well, our kingdom must be understood if you're ever going to be the ruler of it. Our kingdom must be put into words, explanations, symbols, so that when you think about your kingdom, you can divide it up with your own attitudes, your own activities, and work on it wherever it needs to be worked. Our kingdom is divided into 4 divisions. We're talking about now your kingdom, my kingdom. Every human being that is created has come into the physical form as a kingdom. The reason that it's called kingdom is back in Bible time, the highest authority was a king. So Master Jesus referred to it as a kingdom. I could call it your computer system, but we'll stick with kingdom. Now, how is it divided? We have these divisions. Your first division is called Maya. Maya is these first 3 centers to the heart. Dividing line. Maya. What does the word Maya mean? This is where you live in the world of the physical, of the animal, playing the games that please the animal. Maya is everything that you do. The golden bricks, the desires for body thrills, the power play, all of this basically is Maya. Animal. Engrossed, attached, and can't see beyond the animal part of yourself, searching for its pleasures, and of course it is governed by instinct. Then we move to the next segment, which is from the heart center to the top of the head, and this is called Manas, which means the mind, the intellect. This is when you have developed the animal, released at least a part of the animal, and have begun to think in terms of reasoning or manipulation. The easiest way to know the difference is that an animal will come up by a fire and warm itself, but a man will throw another log on it to make it keep burning. Animal will never put a log on the fire. This is the easiest way to know the difference. Manas is where your intellect rules. Cunning, clever, sometimes very brutal, sometimes very kind, very gentle. But your mind, your brain system, your memory pattern, all the things that go to make up a thinking man is known as Manas. The next step is from the top of the head to the golden globe. And this is referred to as the Buddha, or the liberated one, or the Christ, or the divine being who walks in purification. You're still conscious of the world. You still have a certain sense of personality. You still are in the movement of what we call the first substance of form. It is from this level down that we begin form. This is where you decide what type of body you're going to use, what type of body you need, what type of parents you want, and all this kind of business. And then from the golden globe, yes?
From that, you mentioned all the things that take place before you come in to the physical body.
Yes.
You determine where you're going to be. How does it, okay, all these others have to do with while you're in your physical body. The body feels and the reasoning system. Okay, how does that good and down relate to me as I am now?
Well, there's a lot more to answer that question than that. But I'm just hitting basics. When you come down and hit your Buddha level, you begin to take up the divine Godhead coming into a form. That means the atom structure, the basic seed, the permanent atom, now whirls to form. having brought a part of the soul pattern down, which is formless, but yet in pattern in a latent image, drops down to this plane here and sees your record, looks at your record. What is left in the Akashic record that needs to be straightened out? In harmony with what you pulled out of the soul pattern this time, it blends with that part of the record that this part decides it wants to work out. This begins to hold the image. This begins to collect the patterns, and this puts it into its physical expression, at a second physical expression. And then when you birth, this pattern builds to this.
How does it change? How does it change?
It puts latent images into you. Every time you come to retreat, there's certain forces put into your brain system, like a latent image to be worked out. And it has to be worked out.
Subtle, much more subtle than it.
Well, it's sure subtle until you make it real, and then it crystallizes into your physical expressions. It's latent. Latent means that which is impressed that yet has not been expressed into a reality. But it doesn't happen overnight like you want it to happen. Okay, so I worked for 30 years and you want it in 6 years. Sorry. Take another 6 years. All right, we move from the Buddha, this section here, to what we call Atma. Atma is a word used to mean at-one-ment, or the divine self, or the clear being. Now we learn these different states in our divine plan, then we become the worker in the plan. We have to watch our personal desires because they will throw us back down to one of these centers to act among, and it can cause us a lot of pain. We can shed a lot of tears, we can get lost in confusion. That's because we get caught in a spin, in a twine, in a whirl, and we kind of get lost in Maya and generally in Manas at the same time. And we try to make them work, and they won't work. They work maybe for a short period of time, and then our divine self comes down and begins to pick it apart. And if you're not stable enough, it really can cause a great deal of unhappiness. Is it harder to break through after you've slid from home base back to third? Yeah. Yes, it is. Because now you have to fight your way through all that stuff again. And it's harder to let go of. It's really hard to let go of the second time because your mind keeps wondering, how come it didn't work? What was my mistake? How come that other person didn't harmonize? And you just go over and over and over and over until after a while you finally make your breakthrough and come back, and then you just bless everything that's happened and say, gosh, I learned a great experience there, and I'm happy that I learned that, and I'm not going to get caught in that again. And then you turn to your God self and try to live for it rather than for certain things in which you got involved. Meditation and the impersonal state. You see, most of us make everything personal. You got to behave exactly the way I want you to behave. If you don't, boy, I'm going to give you heck. But if I'm impersonal, I say, well, she's got to learn. Do it her own way. So I don't let you affect me by drinking your coffee with your left hand when I think you ought to drink it with your right hand. Yeah, but if you don't react, and if you stand, you're supposed to be kind and gentle, remember? So you don't be impersonal with a scroll on your face. You just smile and say, well, God, beloved, you have to do what you have to do. And in an hour or two, if you'll do this with a lot of love in your heart, they come back and say, I'm sorry. Well, you can hold more in their image. Well, I like a real thing myself. Through misery, we often turn to divine help. We stop running and look for the personality and the selfish gains of the personality, and we want to do the job that God has sent us here to do. And this takes a knowing of the kingdom. You have to know what part of your kingdom is overacting. And this is what we're going to get into. Now, each division gives off different points of view. That is, one who is functioning here has a point of view, and one who is functioning here and here and here and here all have the different points of view, just like if you walked into a 12-story building, and the person on the first floor looking out the east window would see a different view than one on the 12th floor looking out the same east window in the same direction. You see differently. So this is why we shouldn't judge, find fault, criticize, and put people down. And this is why when we have a relationship, if the relationship doesn't work out, just say, well, I learned something. And don't carry that relationship with you. Like the story I often tell, two priests standing on a corner, and it was a muddy day, and the road was muddy, so a lovely girl came by, a beautiful young lady, and she looked at the muddy street, and she started to step down, and one priest says, wait a minute, my dear, let me assist you. He picks her up gently in his arms and walks across and sets her down on the other side of the road, and the other priest walks along. You know you're not supposed to touch one of those things. You know you're not supposed to even caress one of those things. Look what you've done. You held her in your arms. You stimulated yourself. Look what you've done. You sinned. You sinned. And the other priest turned around and says, hey, brother, you're still carrying her. I put her down back over there. And that's what you have to do. When it's over, it's over. Don't run after it in your mind. Cause lots of problems. Remember, your mind is your creator. And you use it to make yourself happy or use it to make yourself unhappy. So let go. Let go, let go, let go, let go. Now these divisions and doorways of each let us know the divine flow from different points of view. So you have to learn how to look through each of the doors. So one might say that you're going to find God at the doorway in which you can center. Now you can. You can center in any one of these doorways. If you center in the emotional, you're going to find God in an emotional way. Not exactly. You're going to find the stream that goes to God. But you're going to think that you have touched the great being himself. But really all you have done, and you'll find this in all kind of churches, and those who touch down here worship animals. Those who touch in here worship the great nature. Those who touch here worship the great personalities. Those who touch here are the great book learners and study and read. Those that ta-da-ta-ta-ta-ta. And those who find it here find it through their own energy force of willpower and tenacity to do what they wish to do. And those who find it here are the ones who let go. Now, to go through these divisions, try to understand them. This is a difficult job, but I'll do the best I can to make it as clear as possible. Now, it is true that when man is developed by the great plan that he is placed on his own intelligence with willpower, and he has to live under the law. Before this, you are automatic. You are cared for, loved, intended to by divine order. We are no longer in this state. Sorry. It would be nice if we was. But you are now a freeman, and you are responsible for what happens to you. You are responsible from this day forward, I will say, and you must learn how to use the law of life.
I've been thinking that I'm not supposed to use my soul punching at all.
I never did say that. Well, I don't know either. Because you have... Do you say, hey, I'm right-handed, so I'll just cut this thing off. It's in my way, and I can save a little money on the next dress I buy because I won't have to have that color? No, you use all your parts. That's what you got them for. Suppose you say, well, I'll never use this. You'll never have any children. No, that's not true. You learn to use them all, but you don't get obsessed and caught in it to where that's every time you want your way, you use one of these centers in which you can manipulate and rule some guy or some girl or your mom and dad or anybody else. You find Many children find out that when they explode this, that mom and dad become like putty in their hands. So they learn it early. So they go up, shut up. What do you want? What do you want? And then down into the pocket or whatever it takes to shut them up. They learn to rule you by that. Yes. Well, God, I never will get there. Using the law and becoming the law. Okay. I'll mention something. Okay, Papa? First, you are under the law. There's no way for you to escape. The law rules you. You're shoved, pushed like the animal. That's instinct. You know what to do, and you don't know that you know what to do, but you do it. Animals live, they don't need man. They don't need to be educated. They don't need to be tended to. We mess them up with our most brilliant intelligence. We got to get into a state of consciousness that gives us above that law. Now, when you move to use the law, you get into intellect. Now, when you get into intellect, you got to think. So, what I do is say, use the law of opulence. This is a law. As you think, so it shall be for you. So first you got to make up your mind. You make up your mind. You put the law into effect. You send it out into the great cosmic plan. It comes back down, touches wherever it needs to, and all this stuff rushes to you that you set up under the law. You learn to use the law as an intelligent being. Now, once you have learned to use the law in harmony with the divine order coming out of Great Supreme, you graduate to purification, and you learn to use this part of yourself, and you become the law. You're your own creator. You're your own being. Everything hums around you. In your position, your environment makes itself fit to you. Now, if you start off doing that, and you're mean, cunning, clever, and unpleasant, you'll drop back down into here. And you'll finally drop back down into here and destroy yourself. You have that right. Because the law must be in harmony with divine order. If you don't, when you become the law yourself, then you can destroy yourself, or you can go ahead and become a supreme state of intelligence. What about the lawmaker? Once the Great Supreme outbreathes, his thoughts are the law of the day. And it cannot be changed. Not for a whole day. He can't even change him himself. If he does, he destroys himself. There's no way he can do it. And you have to learn to become the same as him. And if you get up in your God self, and you become a law unto yourself, you better use it in harmony with the creative process that gathers and increases and expands, rather than using a law to decrease, shrink, and disappear. Just that simple. No. If you have become a law unto yourself and you have manifested the overlay, when his day has finished and he starts taking himself back into himself, at this white circle, there is a choice to be made. You can either go back into the black hole with him and still remain a part of his body in a sphere of light, or you can break off and take a chance of building your own supreme, if you have gained the knowledge. If you haven't gained the knowledge, but only a part of the knowledge, then you will go back into and go to sleep with Great Supreme, but you'll be encased in a beautiful sphere of clear crystal, what seems to be clear crystal. Now, when he pulls back and you don't have your clear crystal, bye-bye. All right, what are we talking about? In the East, they call these chakras. Chakra means a spinning wheel or a vortex of force. This is a mind center. This is a transformer, a doorway, a level of consciousness, or as John would call them, seals that have been closed or open for man to use. They have been explained by apples in the Garden of Eden, bell-shaped flowers of Tibet, jewels of the advanced and wheels of the master, And your answer, suns for solar systems. Now the first center, we refer to it as procreation. It has 4 petals in it. This forms the cross, the Greek cross. This is the first law of man as he comes into his human form and takes on the beginning to build or unfold his kingdom in consciousness. This is to replenish the species. Without this center, the human race cannot rebirth itself, and the many, many entities who have been seated in the permanent atom cannot have a chance to go to school. So somebody somewhere has to get together and produce a little one so that those on the other side can make entry and come back to learn. It is located and tied to the 4th cervical. That's down here in the base, in the back. Sacral, yeah. Excuse me, thank you. While you are an animal, the location of this is tied to the coccyx. As you become a human, it comes up higher to the sacred place, which is in, as you call, the sacral. Now the sound of this 4-leaf spinning is the song of the nightingale told about in many, many esoteric books or in occult knowledge. And for a lot of people, it sounds like crickets. Many, many years ago, when I first began, it sounded like crickets. I didn't think I was ever going to get away from crickets. Many of you have heard the crickets. Some of you have heard the song of the nightingale. H.P.B., who was the great psychic for the Theosophical Society, says that the nightingale song is coming to a close. And this is true. Because those who do not rise into the upper levels, this part will be somewhat shut down. And those units who are looking for bodies that have the animal tendencies or the animal capacities, they will no longer be the animal type body here. The New Guinea Pulpin, the Australian Aborigine, and some of the other in Africa, like the, what do you call them, little midgets? Pygmies. They are dwindling, disappearing, leaving the scene, and there's nothing that no one can do about it. Time is running out. Now, the expression of this is the rhythm of the physical form. That means that when this center is operating in a good, healthy state, and you're not using it in a wild, exciting, wasteful manner, you have a good, healthy body. Yes, that would be a rhythm. Hatha yoga would be a rhythm. Tai Chi would be a rhythm. Walking would be a rhythm. A good physical working job would be a rhythm. The rhythm of the form, keeping the body in a good movement manner, keeping it operative, and all of its joints oiled and working in good shape. Now the color and form, 4 petals look like a red flaming cross. This is where the serpent fire is. This is where the burning bush. Those of you who have been into the next initiation beyond the 4th, you know that we face the burning bush, just like Moses. And all of you, if you stick around long enough, you will have to go into the burning bush and meet the Lord of that particular level. Because you see, each one of these centers has a Lord God who controls the plane. Great Master. Each one of them has one. And as you pass from one to the other, you have to be accepted and you have to be cleared, and this is what we call the initiations. Some of you, of course, have gone through it before, and so it's very easy to take you just in maybe an hour or two, and we just go right on through and touch the great beings. Sometimes they make themselves completely known, and sometimes they only make their energy known. So you can't just say, well, it's this way, and that's all the way. You know, there's too many facets to it. Now, this red ray is very, very important, And I make jest of it when I say, well, the reason they have red lights, the red light district. This is always a red color. Now the form of this can come to you and it can help you, and the red is a creative, beautiful, wonderful energy force. Those of us who have seen Babaji and asked to look at his centers, his throat is a flaming cardinal red. It is magnificent in beauty, but he does his creations from his throat center. He no longer uses the physical body to do procreation. He does it with his voice, with his intelligence. And it is a magnificent cardinal flaming center. Now, let's go on. The prana that comes to us comes down, goes into this center. It comes from the spleen center, is processed into what we call prana. Prana is the life force from the sun. It's transformed into nerve energy, sent through the whole system, intertwines each one of our sacred centers, and runs through the spinal system and goes out through what we like to call the 48 nerves, and the 49th at the top becomes like a fountain. And when you look at a person who has really got into prana, and if you will use the Ankh and go out into the sun, put it on properly, both hands to the sun, close your eyes so that you don't hurt yourself, and start breathing from the sun and thinking of the Logos sending his power and forces to you, you will turn into a radiant pink. It looks like a rose tree. Now, this energy, this prana, the sun energy, can come from these beautiful things that the Egyptians brought over from Andromeda, or you can go out and touch trees and plants and put your hands on them and give them love, and they will give you prana because they collect a lot of prana. Animals collect a lot of prana. One of the things that is good for me is to pet a little dog. I give them love and they give me prana. It's an exchange. They like my animalistic magnetism, and they're very glad to give me a little bit of their electrical prana. When you go to bed at night, it's best to get as much sleep as you can before midnight, because towards the early morning, prana is almost exhausted. This is why you're going to find that many people die early in the morning between the hours of about from 2 to 6. They run out of prana. So 1 hour sleep before midnight is worth 2 hours of sleep after midnight. And it's much better if you are really gung-ho, which I used to be in early days, is get up early in the morning and meditate somewhere around 3 or 4 o'clock. The energy forces of the planet are in a real good state, and you can really turn without being dragged by the animal or the cunningness of the mind that has been running all over the planet during the day. It's all quietened down, and much of it has been dissolved. So you can, early in the morning is really a nice time to meditate. Now the next center is called the spleen center. This has 6 petals, and you'll notice that in the drawing that it is off to the side. It is off to the side because we have come up above the animal and we no longer need it in the line. In the early days it was in the line, and we had to bend over and make ourselves function in harmony with like the animal to draw the magnetic forces out of the planet. So it's now off to the side, and we are drawing more life energy from our divine self than we are from the animal magnetism. The location is right here, and according to what looks like the stem, it's out of place here too, but should be down just a little bit because it goes into the first lumbar. Leave it alone, because if you don't, you'll upset your whole functioning of the body. Just leave it alone. Okay. There are 6 petals. The 7th is the center. It is the doorway through. The navel, which is our solar plex, has 10 petals. The law that governs it is might to right. This is located, now when I say located, I mean the tube is located. Each of these comes out in front of the body, usually about 6 to 8 inches, and some of them lay flat against the body. They're just according to your development. But they have a tube that runs back through here. And when I have to work on you and help you, I have to not only put the pedals back in place, but I have to go through the tube and search the tube to be sure that there are not a entity of some sort hiding inside the tube, because many times there are. My beloved Father has given me an instrument to where I can ream all that out. Sometimes I have to go in and just completely ream the whole thing out and then rebuild the center. And it's really a tough job. And that's the reason I tell you, please quit going to spiritualism type churches. Please stop your readings. Please stop your nonsense in the use of the centers that you have at your command, because I get damn tired of you coming to me having to repair them. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of time, and it hurts. If you are really a sincere, devoted student and you're making every sincere effort, I am most happy to do that. But when you come third and fourth times with the same kind of problem, it gets a little aggravated, and I begin to get a little stubborn. So please, listen to me. When I say stay away from those things, I don't mean go find out about them. I mean stay away from them, because you just hurt yourself. You'd be surprised what can be hid in these tubes. You can think you can have someone psychic look at you and your flower just sitting there just as beautiful, radiating, shining, and you got miserable problems. You don't know why. You have to go in the tube or down the spine, come out through this tube, and you have to search it. And there's layers in there that overlay each other. And you have to spread those out as you go through and look deep into the layers of the tube. And you will find some little old red-eyed booger sitting in there looking at you, and you have to rip him out of there. I've done it for many, and I'll do it for many more before I die, I know. There are entities who are either earthbound, or they are those who have not yet reached the ability to enter into the physical form, or they are those who have been left behind because they haven't performed properly and have not yet been cocooned. They have hid, and they're using you for their piece of mechanism. But I want you to learn how to clean yourself up. I'm not going to be here forever. Run your energy through yourself. That's the main thing. Run your Kriyas. Keep running Kriyas and brighten yourself up until that flower becomes so bright and so full of energy that it'll want out of there. And most times it'll run on its own. But if they're very deep-seated, and then you just have to come. Yes, the master wheel definitely, if you learn how to use it as you are teaching them, they'll spin everything out. But you have to be able to get these flowers to become wheels before you can do it. And this is not just as easy as you might think it is. But yes, when your flowers turn to jewels and then to wheels, many of you you're going to be teachers. You got to learn these things, but you got to go step by step, and you got to go easy and slow. And I want all of you to become teachers of each other. Now, this 10 leaves, the law is might is right. And here's one that really gets us. We really get in trouble with this one. This is your solar plex. This is where the law you try to express is with your physical, where you try to be like gladiator days, just downright meanness. All of these things are used by the law of might is right. He who has the greatest power rules. This is a law you have to be careful of, especially when you start on this path. And many of you have used this law to get what you want most of your life. And breaking it up is tough, because you go up and you fall back. You go up and you fall back. You go up and you fall back. And it takes a long time. But if you continue to make the effort, if you continue to go to the Buddha, sooner or later it's going to be dissolved and you will not be caught to the attachment of the law that might is right. You'll get into more your reasoning, you're kind and gentle, and you'll live, as I have said before, becoming the law of divine order. Now, the expression of this is the right of survival in the lower worlds. And you will find that in the animal world, that only the strong survive. The weak animal will not survive in the wilds. The strong animal will. And this is why back in times of Lemuria, if you didn't have a strong enough body, you were devoured. Might was right. That was the law of Lemuria. The color of this is green. Now it can turn to yellow. But for the most part, right now, as we look at each other, it's green. But it can turn to the golden yellow and put itself in harmony with the spectrum. And this will come about when you have balanced your kingdom, that is, heaven and earth have become one. If it's a nice pastel color, you generally are a pretty calm, gentle person. If it's a real mucky with a little red in it, you're going to fight your way with anybody that steps in front of you. You're just going to come down on them. Oh, here when it changes, it gets mixed up with yellow. Yellow and green kind of mix up and it gets into kind of a bluish color. And then finally they make a switch over when this and this blend. But that's the long way off for most of us. Some of us have begun to turn the solar plex to a yellow color, and they have very, very little animal hostility. Very, very little. Almost completely gone. Yes? Why didn't give that? Well, let's see. No, I didn't do that. It's the silver symbol when they're hit together. Clang! And sometimes flute-like. The one that I usually hear is the flute-like. Sounds like a soft flute playing in the distance. Now, I did hear the silver symbol when I was open to the Tibet. Some of you have heard that with me. The Tibetan uses that to break energy fields so that nothing can enter. These things are really nice, yes. If you are using that center with a great deal of force, it's going to speed up. If you quieten it down, it's going to slow down. No, you don't say that. All you do is swing it around, what we call swing arounds. You swing this power up to willpower center, you take a real good look at it, and instead of coming on like an animal, you come on like a reasoning man and handle it. It's called discrimination. Down here you won't discriminate. You'll just scream, scratch, bite, whatever it takes. But this center swings to this center swings to this center, this and to this, and then you have the swing arounds going on through. When you start developing past the life power center, the next step is to give Buddha a chance to come in and make your life more in a perfect pattern so that you don't have to have willpower in a hostile manner to handle the situation. It becomes very calm, very peaceful, and everything's handled for you. You don't have to do anything. The Buddha will give you the knowledge and the power and the serene capacity of forces to handle it. You will know what to do. You'll know that you know what to do, and it takes no hostility. It just takes a very calm performance. But we turn the emotions to the Buddha, and we have what is called intuitive. But if you have energy blockers, that's the reason you get Kriya, to loosen them up. All right? Lose my place. Okay, let's see. When you get sick at your stomach over a problem, huh? Sick at your tummy, what did I say? Stomach? Well, I was close. You get sick at your tummy because you got angry. Then you know you're using your animal. I'll just have to use my southern accent to get this through, I see. Now this opens the lower and becomes a port of entry for many kinds of psychic forces. This is where the psychic world becomes an exciting place. If you'll watch people who come and perform on a power level, I don't care whether they call themselves master or king or god or what. If you watch them closely, you'll see that most of their activity goes through the solar plexus, and they can win you over, and it is up to you to choose if you want them. The psychic people think through their tummy. I've watched people think through their tummy. And not all, of course, but we have to speak in generalities. We can't go into specific cases. Now this, who are emotional, enjoy each other. And you will find that people who are highly screaming and fussing and fighting, that they usually find somebody that they can do it with. So the emotional person always looks for another emotional person so that they can have a fight. It is tied to the 8th cervical. The sound here is the tinkle bell or the gong. The gong is very beautiful. It has a very deep sound, and you will hear it as if it is in the far, far distance. I love to hear the tinkle bells. This is the most beautiful tinkling sound. When you are centered in your heart center, you will hear one or the other according to how fast or slow the center is spinning. If it's real up above what we call, say, medium spin, it will go tinkle, tinkle, tinkle like a bunch of little glass in the wind hitting each other. If it is slowed down real slow, it will be gong, gong. Have you ever heard for who the bell tolls? Well, that's where it comes from. Why do they put church bells? Why are they there? That's where it comes from. Some minister, priest, heard these sounds and thought they were beautiful, and they built the instrument that gave the same type of sound. And this is your emotional. This gives the vibrational zing to the personal feelings of awareness. You can't live without them, but you can enjoy them and control them and make them a very, very nice part of your life. Yes. Beg pardon? How do you know if you're expressing emotional love versus Buddha love in your heart center with emotions? Is that what you're trying to say? How do you know the difference? Well, one is emotional love, where it will be possessive, where it will be hostile or very, very overactive. The other will be intuitive love, where you are giving love. Emotional love is where you are trying to take love. That comes through the top of the head, and we call it intuitive love, which is far greater than emotional love. When you intuitive love, you just let it happen, and it takes care of itself. You love because of what you can give. Emotional love is you love because of what you're going to get. The 12 petals are yellow zodiacal wheel. This is where your true zodiacal wheel is. You can, if you learn, you can look into a person's center and you'll see little characters sitting on each one of these leaves. And the one that is the brightest is the one that you have birthed with. And you can see whether it's made its way into one that is descending or one that is ascending, or if it is come straight across to another one and trying to make a passover. You can see where the problem is quite often in the way of if you're living under the zodiacal wheel. If you have freed yourself, God, I'm going to run out of time. If you have freed yourself, top of the head is the same 12 leaves. If you freed yourself from under the zodiacal wheel, you lift yourself out of your birth control of that particular leaf. You come up here and you clean it by the Buddha flow, and the last of whatever you're controlled by, the lion or the Scorpio or wherever it is, you take flight. It is burned and swallowed in the divine light, and you become a freeman, and then you can be any one of these to any person that comes to you. If they come as a Leo, you become a Leo. If you are a Libra, you become a Libra. You become all things to all people. But this is after you have left this and no longer are under control of the zodiacal wheel. If you're still under the control, then it is very helpful to have somebody to give you a reading on your sign. It's very, very helpful. But if you are moving out of it, it won't do you much good, because you will one day be one thing, next day be another. So that's just information you should know. The highest animal force is this center. This is where you graduate out of the animal through the feelings for your brother and sister, and move with a compassion of understanding, not wanting to hurt, not wanting to rule, but you pass over this center into the intellect. This is the true doorway to the higher vibrations, into Manas or into mind. Those who have made the passover become the thinkers of the day. Those who have not passed over, they become the rulers of the little man. That is, they are the ones who are the vicious and unkind, and they rule the poor little one who has not yet reached his depth of consciousness to be himself. Those who have gone on over, they do not wish to rule, they wish to guide, to teach, to inform, to be a helper. But those who have not, they are the ones who are the so-called leaders, and they are very vicious, very mean. They'll kill you if you get in their way. And you can see it in our society today. They will put you down into prison, put you away. One way or another, they're going to get you out of the way. This is the center in which you can be very sympathetic, and if you do, you will reproduce the same problem that the other person has. I saw my beloved friend, Dr. Peterson, die with a cancer who he did not have to have, but he became so sympathetic and so guilt-ridden because of his wife, who died with a cancer of the same type of order, that he had to take it on, and then said he was so happy that he had cancer that he could erase his guilt. He told me this. You don't erase guilt that way. You're going to find it out. And he's already found it out. So don't get into a sympathetic state with someone. Compassion, yes. But if a guy's laying there drunk or something else, hey, old buddy, will you help me here? Don't you do it to get down there in the gutter with him to be sympathetic. Don't do it. When he gets tired of doing it, then take him by the hand and say, hey, I'll show you a better way to live. But you can't change him. Now, the fourth, what time am I supposed to quit? Holy cow, I got, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes? About half a minute. Well, no, we got things to do. I'll take a half a minute. Throat center, 16 petals. Yeah, I can finish it at class next Sunday morning, if you want it. Yeah. Okay. Well, we got a show to do, and I'll start with the throat center lecture Sunday morning.